Chapter 20, 1913. That long brown beard just there, and this long brown hair, Alfred has become a man. He controls his emotions, has moral notions, and does all the good that he can. But he is not yet political or critical, like the suffragist who speaks with Elan. The year is 1913. An American socialite is inventing the modern bra using a silk hanky and a metal clip. A Swedish engineer is inventing the modern zip. And a German chemist is inventing MDMA. In Russia, the first ever loop-the-loop is being performed. In Australia, a capital city is being formed. And in Ireland, some protests are culminating in a bloody Sunday. Whilst the British ensure the Ottoman Empire is diminished, now the Balkan War has finished, and they can finally have their say. Fluffy thinks about these things as Cleo holds his arm. They walk past his farm, while spring begins to bloom, whilst birds return to British ground, and fluffy lambs skip all around, beneath the smoggy gloom. While the suffragist speaks to his people, near the steeple, and near this crumbling tomb. Here is this unshaven optician, this cloaked physician, and this widow who shakes as she weeps, this bus conductor, this drill instructor, and this dog who farts as he sleeps. The suffragist leads this university of a street, where his people have come to meet, with passion in her voice. She starts a lecture, and forms conjecture as the student's professor of choice. With a banner which demands votes for women tied up behind, she seems weak in body if not in mind, with sickly skin and sickly eyes. She wears this old-fashioned shirt and this old-fashioned skirt, which are part of a spinster's disguise. One is here to send a message to everyone responsible for today's rejection of the women's suffrage bill. She starts to roar, as if she is at war and recruiting new allies. My message is a simple one, but we live in an uncivilized society, because only when you make males and females equal in law, so that men do not rule over women and women do not rule over men, so that female eyes are considered equal to male eyes, female hands are considered equal to male hands, and female feet are considered equal to male feet, can you call our society civil? Women now hold positions of responsibility on school boards, as counsellors and as doctors. Doesn't this show that we can be responsible enough to vote? Boys and girls all receive an equal education. Should it give them an equal ability to select a government? Men and women are all made to pay taxes. Shouldn't we all be able to influence how those taxes are spent? Shouldn't we treat all the players the same, play on a level playing field, and play by the same rules? Of course we should. We should secure equality of liberty, status, and opportunities between all men and women, rich and poor, young and old. And we should do it now. The longer the suffragist speaks for, the louder she becomes, to overcome these heckles which boom like drums and screech like violins. Till this man mountain with a double chin yells so loudly she is forced to give in as soon as his heckling begins. What infernal nonsense, he sings. The bill was only defeated because you're arson, abuses and antics. You're just a posh bunch of terrorists, and everyone here knows it. Man Mountain wears a rolled up balaclava and spits phlegm like molten lava as he talks with the suffragettes, a militant faction who are intent on violent action and act without regrets. That feminist splinter group has set churches on fire, strapped themselves to the King's Palace with wire, and destroyed shop fronts. They've attacked politicians in taxes, refused to pay their taxes, and used force during most of their stunts. Don't judge the whole of womankind by the action of a militant few, the suffragist replies, calls, cheers and cries, with fire in her belly and fire in her eyes. You only have to look at our army to see that men can be savage too. It's a little harsh, is it not, to expect women to obey laws which they had no say in making. So make no mistake, when women are involved in the process of law making, the suffragettes will stop their acts of law breaking. There's no hidden agenda here. But until then, the government's law will remain men's law, without a mandate to rule over women. And so you can sling as much mud as you like, but it's not going to stick, because we're the political heavyweights now. We hold the moral high ground, and we're here to stay. You can bet your final farthing on it. Alfred smiles at the suffragist, who pumps a fist, while his heckles still persist. What blasphemy! His hunchback yells through a mist. What rot! What claptrap! The bill is a disgrace! A constitutional outrage! The electorate hasn't ever demanded votes for women! The hunchback continues to cry, as his missiles start to fly, and whiz through his chilly air, as his bloody bandages and soggy sandwiches land just over there, before a stone like the one which killed Alfred's dad is thrown by this drunken lad, who is among the scan of teens. He hits the suffragist's face with a wallop, and spills her blood by the dollop, whilst her shoulder gets pelted with beans. But she stands still, without even flinching, whilst his policeman prevents the lynching, by leading the gang past those streams. The electorate only represents half the population, the suffragist screams. Across the full population, there's a clear majority who support female suffrage. It's a system which is the outrage. It's just not fit for purpose. One wouldn't touch it with tongs, oneself. The system is broken, ignores the will of the people, and one is throwing one's hat in the ring to fix it. Because now is a time for democracy. Now is a time for equality. And now is a time for majority rule. We mustn't let another generation of women waste their lives begging for a vote. This isn't some sort of passing whimsy that can be kicked into the long grass. This is a tipping point. The political landscape is about to change. As soon as she finishes speaking, the young labourer who stood over there, with a head of cropped hair, shouts across this busy town square. Do bear up, women, for God's sake! He begins to blare. You must think us noodles, what with all this theatrical poppycock. Poison merchant, if you get what you say you want, we'll end up with women in Parliament. They'll want to send men to wars in which they'll never fight. It's un-British. It's unbecoming. Women will never be able to understand the mechanics of politics. They belong in the kitchen, not in the Commons. So don't you be getting too big for your boots, you rascal. This society wasn't built on equality, it was built on people knowing their place. Okay, the policeman says to cut the labourer short as he scratches a wart and starts to snort. Puff, snip, jumph. Methinks we've seen enough, we have. And anyways, I make it time for dinner, I do. Yes, so yes, it is definitely home time. Off you all go. Much obliged, much obliged. The policeman resembles a grim reaper today, with a scathe-like baton which starts to sway beneath his cloak-like coat, with a hood-like helmet above his face, and skeletal fingers which wag with pace beneath his skeletal throat. Alfred knows his friendly policeman for their many talks, during Alfred's many walks, when they have met on many a street. Alfred has seen the policeman direct traffic with a baton, light lamps with a cap on, and wave from his bicycle seat. Don't you be causing trouble on my patch no more, young missy, he begins to bleat. I don't never want the pleasure of your company again, I don't. I shall arrest you in an instant for breaching the peace, I shall. You can consider yourself lucky not to be on your way to the cells presently. It'd certainly behove this situation, it would. But the suffragist is far too tough and far too gruff to accept this policeman's dark charity. With her eyes wide open and her spirits unbroken, she sees things with perfect clarity. Say, what about my bloody brow? She asks in search of parity. What about the gang who assaulted me? Where do they fit into the grand scheme of things? Honestly, you distress me, officer, with such incontinency. Shouldn't you be charging them with breaching the peace? I don't see me a gang, I don't, the policeman concludes with a glare as he starts to stare all around this grassy square. I know your type, I do. I suspect you inflicted this bleeding upon yourself. You did. Always after attention, you suffragettes. A bunch of rotters, a lot of you. So I've heard. Anyways, off you trot, get off my land. But because of the suffragist's passionate persuasion, Alfred ignores the policeman's strong dissuasion and basks beneath his skies. The square soon clears, this crowd disappears, and the policeman rolls his eyes. He pivots and turns around, walks across his grassy ground, and leaves. He rides his bike past that dyke and gets mud all over his sleeves. Alfred unties the suffragist's big white banner, whilst Cleo nurses the suffragist in a professional manner and stitches her bloody cheek. But Cleo's nursing has improved beyond recognition since he started to work for a clinician in a hospital which cares for the meek. Oh, darling child, please excuse my appearance, the suffragist starts to speak. One will be in cigarettes and shorts with painted lips and nails before too long. Please, Alfred replies. Appearances are one thing, but her health is another. Are you sure you're okay? No, the suffragist admits. Not at all. Today was my first speech since hunger striking in prison, and one did feel a little bit light-headed up there. Malnourishment has a horrible habit of causing one temporary blindness. But one will be fighting fit and punching above one's weight before you know it. One has a vision for the future, and one will battle for it against all the odds, no matter one's condition. Say, one should be in prison again under the Cat and Mouse Act, whatever one does. They only ever set one free when force-feeding one with a food tube doesn't work. They don't want a martyr on their hands, you see. But they'll arrest me as soon as I'm better. They've released and arrested me 4 times already. It's a politics of control, so to speak. The last time one was released, one was re-arrested just 4 weeks later, when one booed the Prime Minister. But it's a marathon, not a sprint, and these disguises do help. How ghastly, Cleo gasped. Oh, I am sorry. No, really, it's okay. One is fine with it, the suffragist says with his nervous laugh, one bony hand on a skinny calf, whilst the other grips her scarf. At the end of the day, whatever happens will hit the government. If one gets away, they'll be laughed at. And if one is arrested, then the people will be roused. The fools hurt themselves every time. They don't seem to know their own minds about it. The suffragist talks about the Women's Suffrage Federation, which inspires Alfred to make his first ever political affiliation as he joins her socialist sect. He considers the suffragist campaign for equality to be a good deed for the community, and he believes that her views are correct. So his friends continue their conversing, and Cleo tells the suffragist all about her nursing, her travails, treatments and training, about 12-hour shifts which quickly pass, and about her nursing class, which often leaves her straining. The suffragist speaks about the magazine she writes, which keeps her up at nights, while she dreams of starting a charity, while she dreams of employing the unemployed and assisting the socially destroyed, who have been forced to act with austerity, and feeding the famished and welcoming the banished with acts of real dexterity. Say, one does believe that we can overcome our own problems by losing ourselves in other people's troubles, she says with clarity. One feels that one ought not to be too comfortable, snug and well fed, whilst other people are starving. And so one is on a charm offensive to make a real difference. One is winning over the floating voters, and one can feel the winds of change which one is stirring. They bid farewell, but Alfred visits the suffragist whenever she is in prison, on a hunger strike which affects her vision, and makes her stumble around. He talks about the golf club houses across the land, the cricket pavilions of a racehorse stand, which the suffragists have burnt to the ground. He builds an affinity with the suffragists, whilst he becomes quite the artist, at work with his stepfather, though he wears that man's old monkey suits and old work boots, whilst he works with real ardour, whilst he saws, sands and shaves, etches, enamels and engraves, almost every single day, whilst his stepfather gorges you on tin sardines, baked beans and bowls full of pink soufflé. Their earnings go into a household kitty, but Alfred is allowed to make some toys which are pretty, as long as he does not spend a dime. So he makes his picture frames, gizmos, gadgets and games, which he gives the children at Christmas time. I don't know whither all the wig goes, my little soldier, his mother begins to whinge, cringe and whine. My notion, someone's been getting up to some mischief. They have. Oh, it's just not respectable. But his mother cannot stop Alfred from making 12 pots for the town square, which he arranges in a loop, a spoon which he uses to serve the needy with soup, and a sign for Cleo's hospital which he hangs on this hoop. Before he walks down this hospital corridor, he sees suffering across his floor, which makes him feel rather ashen. He sees patients in broken chairs, and patients on broken stairs, who all fill him with compassion. He sees patients who are full of pains, and patients who are full of strains, spread along these endless aisles. He sees patients with pneumonia, dystonia, pox, plague, and piles. But it is the ever-present poverty which Alfred finds so gut-wrenching, soul-drenching, and morose. He sees people who could be saved, who are not being treated because they have not paid, and he finds it utterly gross. He sees his rheumatic with a fever, who flashes red like an angry beaver, and white like a waterfall. He sees his paralytic with palsy, who drops a cup of tea as she drags herself down this hall. And he sees his blind man who cannot see, who bumps his knee on the side of his whitewashed wall. So Alfred walks through this waiting room and searches for the groom who now works in medical supplies. Walks past these lanes and past these trains which puff steam into those skies. He walks past his robin, rabbit and rat before he arrives at the groom's new flat, which is spacious but unfurnished. There is nothing in the scullery, apart from his celery and his coal hole which still looks burnished. I'll make you a bed, a kitchen table, and some chairs, Alfred says to cut a deal as he taps his heel and kicks his orange peel. I don't want to hate me in return. No, thank you. Please, I just like a pair of glasses, a wheelchair, and some medicine for a fever. Don't ask any questions, and we'll have ourselves a deal. I'll be ever so grateful. I'll be very much obliged. I do like a mystery, the groom replies as he rubs his eyes and pods these cherry pies. I'm all for a mystery, all for it. Wine once magically appeared at our wedding, so I'm all for the unexplained, all for it, and we can certainly do with furniture. With a youthful face which does not feature a single wrinkle, dot, dent or dimple, the groom shakes hands to seal the deal. And in just a few days, without any delays, Alfred gets the things he asked for in his appeal. So he walks with his wheelchair under his shoulder sockets, this medicine in his pocket, and his glasses in his hand. He walks past his hospital gate, this iron grate, and this pile of builder's sand. His mouse scurries, and that fox hurries, so Alfred starts to sweat. This vehicle toots, and that owl hoots, so Alfred starts to fret. Because even after many years of sneaking about, strange noises still fill Alfred with doubt and cover his brow with crinkles. His pulse accelerates, his heart palpitates, and his skin gets covered in pimples. When this janitor bursts into his hospital ward, looking blasé, bedevilled, and bored, Alfred hides behind this door. He hides from his insomniac with a broken hip, and the sleepwalker with a split lip, beneath this open drawer. He hides inside a cupboard where no one else will follow, within this hidden hollow, and behind this bright white screen. He hides from his porters with tired demeanours, and his cleaners, who clear, cleanse and clean. These nocturnal workers were an inconvenient challenge for Alfred at first, but he soon sprints past them with an energetic burst, as his confidence starts to improve. He leaves the medicine for a rheumatic so she can return to her family, the glasses for a blind man so he can see, and the wheelchair for a paralytic so she can move. Unheard, unseen, and unfelt, Alfred good deeds have been dealt as he walks into another new year, as the sun shines bright and spreads its light before darker times appear.